What's up guys? I've got my hacker hoodie on. That only means one thing. Tonight, we are hacking Azure Active Directory. Let's get right into it. Okay, so let me just explain what the clickbaity title is. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some open source tools that is available to enumerate our Azure Active Directory environment and also to map it out. So those of you that are hardcore might know of a tool called Hound. That is a tool used for enumeration and mapping of on-premises Active Directory. So there has been a new evolution of that tool. It's called Azure Hound, specifically for Azure Active Directory. And that tool, enumerates and maps out the quickest or the shortest attack paths within that tenant. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and configure that for us, from a configuration point of view, and then I'm going to show you guys when it comes to hacking how to do an Azure Active Directory privilege escalation. So I've got all of the requirements met, which means I've got my blinds are closed and there's only one more thing to do. +8 stealth mode. Let's go.
Also, a quick note. So this demo is based on misconfigurations and not a Microsoft bug. And of course, this video is meant strictly for educational purposes only. So let's get back into the video.
All right, guys, back on the PC. So let's go ahead and look at some of the requirements in order to get Azure Hound up and running. So just to avoid some confusion, the main tool's name is still Bloodhound. Version 4.0 just includes the option, to do Azure Hound functionalities with it. So let's head over to Google and let's see what we can do. So I'm just going to do a normal Google search. And the first one that pops up is Windows, says Bloodhound 3.0 documentation. So even though we need Bloodhound version 4.0, the installation steps still remains the same. So let's have a look. So first off, let's install Java. So we will need the Oracle JDK 11, and you can just open it up here. And you can select it for your operating system. So we're just going to choose Windows 64 installer, and we're just going to download that sucker because we've got an account. If you don't have an account, you can just download it somewhere else. Just make sure it's safe. That's cool. All right, cool. So let's go ahead. So the next step is to install Neo4j. So Neo4j is basically just a database that Azure Hound is going to connect to store it and do the queries from. Right. So let's just open that up in a new tab. I'm just going to accept the cookies. And what we're going to do is you'll see there's different versions. You've got the enterprise, the community, and the desktop version. So let's go with the community server edition for now. And we're going to choose for operating system. We're going to choose the Windows option. And we're just going to download this guy. So while that is busy downloading, what we need to do is we need to do the following. We need to open a command prompt as admin. Yep. And they want us to change the directory to our downloads folder, which will be in the bin directory. So let's go ahead and do that. Now what we want to do is we want to do neo4j.bat install service. If I can just get my spelling right. Cool, it's saying it's already installed. That is correct, but yours will install. Didn't have an issue with that. And the next step is just to start the service, right? So net start neo4j, and it's just going to say, it's already running. Cool, it's already been started, 100%. And that's, as simple as it gets. So the other one does to open up this local browser here, and the first time when you log in, you're going to leave all those as default. So the username will be neo4j, and the password for the first time will be neo4j, and it's going to ask you to actually just change it. So I've done that already. Cool. So that is that then for neo4j, or the database portion. So the next portion is just to go ahead and download the Bloodhound package from GitHub. So let's just open up that link that they gave us here. Here we can see it's Bloodhound 4.0, which is required for the Azure Hound functionality. And here you can just, choose your flavor here. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose Windows x64. I'm going to download that guy.
And I'm just going to open it up here for us. And there's an executable file here. So nothing out of the ordinary. Just going to run this guy. Just going to minimize this. Alright, so you will see automatically it detects the host name. So and the username will be Neo4j because the service has already been started. And you can enter your password that you changed. Great stuff. Alright, so now we have opened up Bloodhound. We are connected with the Neo4j database. So now the next step is to go ahead and link our Azure tenant, which has read writes for the tenant, get all of that information, and then drop it into Bloodhound. But for now, the database has been set up, Bloodhound is up and running, there's no issues, so we're good to go. So let's go ahead and get some of the data from Azure tenant. Cool, so let's just go ahead and close these tabs for now. I'm happy with that. So now what we'll need to do is we'll need to open our PowerShell as admin, and I'm just going to run ISE. Let's just go back to our downloads folder here, which has the one that we've downloaded from GitHub. Let's just get the path for that, and let's just change the path to that. Alright, there's a few things that we need to do here. So first off, we are going to import the module for Azure Hound or Bloodhound. So let's just go import module. I'm just going to say, let me just have a look here. It's called azurehound.ps1. Awesome. Now what we need to do is we need to connect our information with our Azure tenant. So, which tenant are we going to query or attack depending on which team you're on. So let's go ahead and say connect Azure account. And once we've authed, we actually need to run, to pull the information, via Bloodhound. So what we're going to do is we're going to say invoke Azure Hound. There we go. So let's just run and execute this. And it's going to pop up asking me to sign in. And I'm going to sign in with a normal user account that has got read writes to all of the applications, the subscription and also the Active Directory in Azure. So it does not have to be a GA account. It can be just a normal account that has got read writes or read writes assigned, to the Azure environment. So while that is running now, you will see it will start going and looking at, what is all of the containers or the resources that has been created in Azure. And once we have that, it will put it nicely into a zip file, which we can just drag and drop into Bloodhound. So this would run, for about a minute or so. I don't have a very large environment, but organizations that have a lot of users or a lot of resources, this might take a bit longer. But it's just, pulling all of the data into a zip file, and we're going to start, visualizing all of this data once it is in Bloodhound or Azure Hound. So let's just give this guy a second to complete what it needs to complete. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and open up the Bloodhound application again, in case you've closed it. So let's just go ahead to the Bloodhound, and we're just going to double click on that icon. And we're going to sign in here, Neo4j, and I'm going to sign in with my password that I've set earlier. Awesome. Now I'm in. So the first thing that you'll see is it might look intimidating because it's just a blank slate and there's no information or queries, that's, coming back. And that's understandable because it's not going to put it up in automatically. You first have to run those PowerShell commands, get a zip file, and then just drag and drop it to this application. So let's see how this is going. So you can see it's, finding my 10 resource groups, as part of my subscription. And once this is done, it will actually just, put it in a nice zip folder in the main Azure Hound folder for us, and then we can just drag and drop it. It's really as simple as that. I know I've said it a few times, but guys, it's really that simple. Awesome. So now that it has been completed, it created a zip file for us. So let's just copy and paste that URL just to make sure we don't miss anything. Awesome. Here's our zip file. So for now, we've got the information that we need. What we can do is just to verify, we can just open it up. WinRAR is always, trying to sell itself to us, but not today, sucker. All right. So let's have a look. You can see, there is some, there's a size associated. So you can see, there is some permissions and, there's some cool stuff here. So we did actually, succeed in getting some of the information out. So let's just close that. And for now, let's just minimize PowerShell. And now we're just going to drag and drop, this findings of the zip file into Bloodhound. It's going to import it. It's going to say upload completed. We're going to clear finished. So there's nothing in progress anymore. And now you're going to ask, well, what the hell, Rian? It's still a blank screen. And I know that's the beauty of it. So now we're going to start querying it, right? So it's a simple query. So we're just going to start typing tenant, and it's going to get our tenant. And now it's showing a little icon here. I can zoom in for you guys. And now you're going to say, well, still doesn't look that impressive. So what's all the hoo-ha about? Well, if you click on it, just left click on it, it will give you all of the information, right? So it's going to show you what is the tenant ID. It can show you the tenant name. And here it can show you all of the descending objects, or the objects, that is within this tenant. So we can see we've got one subscription, and it's called demo, right? And you can see there's a link. What we can also see is we have 0 virtual machine objects for now. We have total resource groups is 10. So if we click on that, we start getting, a better understanding of, the attack paths and, how to enumerate and, just understand what are the attack paths for Azure. Because I know from a portal perspective, administrators might understand it and it might make sense to them, but it's nice to visually represent all of that information. So here we can see we've got all of our resource groups here. I'm going to say, okay, cool. So if that is the case, let's right click on it. And this is where the magic starts happening, is you can say shortest paths to here. So let me translate that. That means what is the shortest path, that needs to be breached to get, to own this container. All right. So here we can see on our demo tenant, we've got a global admin here, which is the admin account. However, here is our resource group within, that tenant, or within that subscription, right? And there's some cool things here. So here you can see, if we just zoom in a little bit, here's our demo subscription, because this is a part of that. However, you can see we've got some cool, funky stuff going on here. So let me start translating some of the stuff for you guys. So you can see there's a user account here, which is just a normal account. And you can see it's a user access administrator role that's assigned to it. You've got another Azure user access admin assigned to it. You've got a user here, Andrew, that has, the AZ reset password role assigned to it. But let's start looking at the objective of, we said we're going to hack Azure, right? So I've showed you how to configure these tools and to map it out. But now let's go ahead and see how we can actually, perform an attack, a privilege escalation attack within the Azure environment. So let's just paint a picture here for a second. So imagine you have a normal user account in Azure Active Directory. Let's say, for example, it's a business unit manager. They've got a requirement and, there's an application, that needs to be, associated with the Azure tenant. So so one of the admins went ahead and they associated this Azure application. All right. And this application is in charge, to manage Active Directory, to create users, delete users, just to do housekeeping, right? From a central pane of glass for all of the teams around the world. That's a normal use case. That's cool. What usually then happens is, some of the Azure administrators sometimes get confused and then they'll add that normal user as an owner of that application, because they think, well, who owns that application? Well, it is, whoever. However, if you assign a normal user as an owner of that application, and there's a service account or service principal associated with that Azure application, and that service principal has got permissions, for example, to privilege a role, administrator role, for example, you can then authenticate, as that, service principal, and guess what? Then you can start creating users, you can escalate, users permissions, stuff like that. And that's where it gets interesting. Let us head back, to this diagram here. So what we can see is we have an application here called, very unique, I know, it's called Rian app. And we can see here, there's a normal user that owns this application, right? So you can see it says AZ owns. And here, it says, just a bunch of numbers, So this might look like gibberish, but it's actually a service principal. So, sometimes when Bloodhound is feeling nice, it will actually show a little robot icon to illustrate that it is a, service principal. But needless to say, we know it's a service principal because, it's got all of that gibberish associated to it. And, so in essence, all that we need to do is we need to own this user account from a red team perspective in order to own the entire directory in Azure. So, talk is cheap. So how do we actually start going at it? Good question. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to sign into the Azure portal with this normal user information, right? So let's just click on it, get that information. I'm going to sign into the Azure portal. Cool. So let's approach this, from both angles, a red team and a blue team, So the scenario is that this is a user, that is the owner of an application. So let's go ahead and confirm that first off. So let's go ahead to, our Azure Active Directory. And we're going to go into app registrations, owned applications, and run app. And on the left-hand side, under manage, there's owners. And you can see there's two owners here. There's a normal user and the global admin, right? But we're going to focus on this normal user because this normal user, has got no additional permissions in Active Directory. And let's go ahead and confirm that. So let's go to the profile. We're going to go to assigned roles. And as you can see, there is no directory roles assigned to this, meaning, there's no global admin role assigned or privileged role administrator role assigned to it. So this is just a stock standard normal user role. That being said, let's go back here. So all that we need to do in essence is if we can breach, we're going to use this user account. We're going to authenticate to Azure. We're going to get some of the information, and I'll share that with you guys now what we need in order to do this attack. And then we're going to impersonate this, service account or service principal to authenticate as, and then, we've got the permissions of that account. And then we're going to, promote this user, to global admin. Sounds impossible, but let's give it a bash. All right, so I'm just going to step you guys through this PowerShell script and what it does. Cool. So right at the top, we have our variables, and these are very important. So we need four things, right? So we first off need the application object ID within Azure. So how do we get that? We get that via, if we go to Bloodhound and we click on the app, there we go, there's our app ID. So it starts with C3. You can just confirm there, it starts with C3. Then we need the service principal ID, the service account. Once again, we click on that one. That's it. That's how you know. So it starts with 494. If we minimize, 494. Next up, we need the tenant ID. So if we go to Bloodhound again, it's this little demo tenant here, this little icon. If you look at there's the object ID. So it's AB1. Here it starts with AB1 as well. Last off, we need the normal user object ID. It will be this guy here, and this starts with 762, and here we've got 762. So that's all fine and well, and here is where we're going to auth as the normal user, in Azure Active Directory. And below that, we've got our AD service principal, and that's just where we specify, what is the service principal for which application. So let's go ahead and run this for now. It's going to pop up, ask me to sign in. So let's just go to Bloodhound again, to my normal user. I'm going to sign in with the user that's got no global admin rights or anything funky like that. Okay, so you can see I've successfully signed in. There's my account, my environment, my tenant ID, my domain, and my user type. So the next step is to create the key credential for this application. And we're going to do that by creating a self-signed certificate. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new self-signed certificate, and we're going to call this, new test for now. And there's some credentials here just to make sure that, we set the provider, and also, we're going to save that as a thumbprint because we're going to need that later, and we're going to save it to this variable here. Just a normal password. I'm just going to call it blah for now, why not? And then, we're going to export the certificate to my local machine, and we're going to, export it. And we just want to call this certificate the sscert.pfx, for self-signed certificate. So let's go ahead and just run that as well. And there we go. Quite quick and fast. We've got our certificate. So let's go ahead to Bloodhound. And there we go. There's our self-signed certificate. All right. So that's all good and well. So now let's open up our certificate manager on Windows. So let's go for mmc.exe. You read my mind there, Windows. Awesome. Let's go to File, Add Remove Snap-ins, Certificates, and we're going to add the computer account. And let's just finish that up. So let's go ahead and go to Personal, choose Certificates. Just refresh, and there we go. There's our new test, our SS certificate. So let's just open it up and let's have a look under Details. Let's have a look at the thumbprint, which is very important. So, it starts with a 45B, and this certificate is in PFX format. So let's head over to the Azure portal and see why we cannot import the certificate as it is right now. Okay, so I'm signing to the Azure portal. I'm going to go to Azure Active Directory. I'm going to go to App Registrations, Owned Applications, and the app. So if we go to a section under Manage called Certificates and Secrets, here we can see there's a portion specifically dedicated to certificates. So let's try and upload our new self-signed certificate. So let's go ahead to our new self-signed certificate. We're going to browse, try and upload that file. The problem is it's not showing up, so that's a red flag. So let's go to all files, try and upload it. We're going to try and add it, and it says, we're not allowed to. It is a PFX, so we can only do, SIR, PEM, and CRT certificates. So it's not the end of the world. So what we can do is we go to this new test, we right-click it, all tasks, and export. So what we'll have to do is we'll just have to convert this, and export it as a SIR certificate. So we're not going to export the private key, and it's important to choose base 64. That's cool. And we're just going to call this SS Cert. All right, and we're going to save it. Next, finish, and there we go. Awesome. So now what we're going to, let's try that again. We're going to browse, and now we can see we've got a security certificate that we can select. So let's go ahead and add that. And as you can see, we've got a 45B thumbprint. And if we just open this up again, we've got a thumbprint of 45B1. Perfect. So now we know we've got that certificate up and running. Let's just clear the screen here back in PowerShell. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to authenticate to Azure, via our new key credential, but we're going to specify the tenant ID, the application ID, and the certificate thumbprint we've just created and associated to our Azure application. So it's going to think we're going to impersonate, that account. And once we do that, we're going to say, all right, cool, but can you make the normal user, while you're at it, just make it global admin, no biggie. So let's select these two commands. Let's step through them. Just wait for them to complete, and there we go. No errors. So now what we're going to do is we're essentially a global admin, and we did not authenticate once with something that we did not, know. We know. So there was a process that we needed to follow to understand what we need to provide Azure to, impersonate the account, but now we just made a normal user account a global admin account. So let's go ahead and confirm if this is actually the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to refresh the browser. We're going to go down to Azure Active Directory. We're going to, under Manage, we're going to go to Users. We're going to go to the normal user. And under Assigned Roles, surprise, surprise, Bob's your mother's brother. Now you're officially a global administrator in this tenant, and you can go ham. And we did this by using a normal user account that was an owner of an application that had a privileged, service account or, service principal associated with that application. And we used that, to our benefit to go and create, and make ourselves a global admin. So we can go and remove other global admins. We can create more global admins. We can do whatever we want, as a global administrator. And there you have it, guys. Now you know how to do privilege escalation, via Azure applications. It's as simple as that, guys. So remember, smash the like button if this was informative, and why not sub? It's free. Until next time, have a good one, guys. Cheers.